Hello everyone, and welcome to today's webinar entitled Key Steps to Maximize ROI in HR, sponsored by Ebix Health, Benefit Coordinators Corporation, and the Aberdeen Group. I'm John Lamb, and I'm the Vice President and Group Head for Ebix Benergy, a business unit of Ebix Health, and I'm your moderator today. Before we begin, we've got a few announcements. First, this webinar is designed to be interactive between you and the presenters. You can participate in a Q&A session by asking questions at any time during the presentation. Just type your question into the Ask a Question text area in the bottom corner of your screen, then click the Submit button. You can enlarge the slide window at any time by clicking on the Enlarge Slide button located below the presentation window. The slides will advance automatically throughout the event. If you are experiencing problems with the program, please press the F5 on your keyboard or close your window and relaunch the presentation using the other media player. You can visit our webcast help guide by clicking on the Help button below the slide window, or you can send us a note in the text area in the bottom corner of your screen. Now on to the presentation, Key Steps to Maximize ROI in HR. Discussing today's topic will be Kevin Martin, the Senior Vice President, Research Operations at Aberdeen Group, where he is responsible for all of Aberdeen's research practice areas and research-based solutions. Kevin joined Aberdeen in 2007 to build a human capital management research practice. Since that time, Aberdeen's human capital management research analysts have benchmarked the workforce and talent management practices and performance of more than 20,000 organizations worldwide, and have published hundreds of research papers pertaining to industry best practices. Kevin will be sharing the latest findings from this research with us today. In addition, I'd like to introduce Mike Lawton, the President and CEO of Benefit Coordinators Corporation. BCC is a leading provider of outsourced solutions connecting HR, benefit management, and specialty administrative services for employers nationwide. BCC and Ebix Health have been working together since 1988 and have co-developed many technology solutions along the way. So to begin today's presentation, I'm going to turn it over to Kevin Martin. Kevin?
Hey, John. Thank you very much. And hi, everyone. It's a pleasure to be with you today. Before I get really into things, I do want to thank Ebix and Benefit Coordinators Corporation for the opportunity to share Aberdeen's research with its broker partners as well as some of HR practitioners that are out there. And you know, before I dive into things and really get things rolling, I thought I'd engage you all a little bit and ask you a question. You know, one of the things that's pretty obvious, I think, to anyone on this call, maybe anyone in the world, period, frankly, is that core HR and benefits management may not be two of the most popular, let's say, items to discuss among the social circles out there. However, when we look at what our research has been showing us, and this is really looking over the last several years, without a doubt, those two elements are growing in strategic importance among businesses worldwide. And so what I thought I'd do is first ask you a polling question, and I'm very interested to get your perspective on this. So I'm going to push this question out here to you all. Let me make sure that you see this. Okay, so here's the question. What I wanted to know is the automation, from your perspective, the automation of benefits management correlates to the improvement in which of the following metrics? So if you could take a few seconds out just to peruse these and reply via the screen there. I'll share the results with you in just a minute. But as you're pondering these, quality of hire is one of the most, if not the most popular measure in all of talent management right now, and it really gets to the impact of someone post-hire when they join a business. Time to productivity is how fast someone coming into a company actually gets up to speed. Employee engagement is a measure of how aligned an employee is with not only what's expected of them, but with the future goals of the business as well. And then obviously the cost of health care per employee to the organization is pretty self-explanatory. I don't know why we've got duplicate there when it comes to that entry, but I'd like to know which of these do you perceive correlating most to the improvement within within benefits management. So if you can go ahead and respond to that, we'd appreciate that. And I'm having a hard time, by the way, okay, never mind. Let me see if I can see this. I'm having a hard time for my presentation council to actually see the results coming in. So if someone can help me with that, I'd appreciate that. All right, thank you very much. And okay, so all of you are really on top of your game here without a doubt. And let me just address this really quickly. Many of you, let me just walk through this. From a quality of hire standpoint, we are absolutely seeing benefits management. Let's talk about that specifically as being a recruiting tool right now. From a time to productivity standpoint, just at a very high level, what we're seeing is, especially in the onboarding phase, where organizations are able to automate certain paper-based processes, whether it's the benefits administration, signing up for benefits, et cetera, or other types of new employee paperwork, getting that out of the way is allowing these employees to focus at getting to be productive in the job role they were hired to be in the first place. From an employee engagement standpoint, this is one where we are, within the last year, we are seeing organizations really focusing heavily on benefits and core HR, whether it's letting someone get paid accurately on time, let's say, or allowing them to have a say in the benefits they have and more control over the allocation of the dollars allocated to their benefits programs. Having that power, and this is where we're going to see self-service come in, is really moving towards allowing someone where, let's say, having a strong impact through benefits on employee engagement. So, and then the cost side of the equation, pretty self-explanatory. I mean, our research showed that the companies that did best in benefits management last year, year over year, when it came to benefits management, they saw an average cost increase of about 2% year over year in overall benefits cost to their employees. But you compare that to their peer organizations, those that did not make our best in class, they averaged about a 13% year over year cost increase when it comes to benefits administration. And so clearly there is something that organizations that are achieving the best results are doing a little differently, and I want to talk about that. But what I also want to share with you is, where there's hang-up. And the hang-up is, unfortunately, due to this graphic that I'll share with you next, is what maybe says it all. We all recognize in the last 3 years, from a global perspective, there's been an economic recession that's been occurring. Certain economies, certain geographies have not suffered as much as others, without a doubt. However, what we have seen in parallel with the economy, or in direct result because of it, the blinders really have been put on the business. And when we look at data that we get from the executive suite, not necessarily just HR executives that take part in our studies, what we continue to see, or what we saw over the last 3 years, was a focus, forget about the longer term, forget about 3 years and out as a business. The focus was on the here and now survival. And HR, as a result of that, became far more mired in the tactical elements, which as a result really hamstrung HR. And so especially for, this really applies to the brokers on the call here today as well as the practitioners. I'm going to share with you some helpful hints coming up that our research has shown, and frankly, it's been validated from case study after case study we've pursued here as to what HR can do to really get above the muck of the tactical, and where does core HR and benefits administration come into that picture. Now, from a data perspective, the reality, and this is where, when you ask an Aberdeen analyst to speak on a webinar, we're not going to give you opinion. We'll share our opinion if you ask it, but it's always rooted in our data. So every month what we do, and I manage 15 research practices here at Aberdeen, so we cover everything from human capital to supply chain management and IT security, everything in between, any functional area of a business. And every quarter we have a cross-functional survey that we have about 1,600 business executives from around the world participate in. And only 3% of that survey sample is from the HR job function. So it's very much an indicator to us as to where the business strategy is going and what are the indicators of business from a pressure standpoint, from a goal standpoint, et cetera. And in the last survey we did, which was in Q2, our Q3 one is going to be going out here real soon, which is really, we're embedding that into our Q4 data as well. But in Q2, in June of this year, fully, I think it was 59% of every survey respondent to that particular survey told us that the primary objective of their company over the next 12 months was organic revenue growth, organic meaning non-merger and acquisition growth. And so that they're really looking at how can we expand our current customer base, how can we get net new prospects into the funnel and close them. And what we thought was another strong indicator was that if we juxtapose that data to what we found in Q1 of this year, the average anticipated growth for a company over the coming 12 months had increased from 12% year over year to 13%. But it's important to balance that with this. What we found is that the average head count has been, if we look quarter over the past about a year and a half, we've seen where companies anticipated in Q4, let's say of 2009, they anticipated a 1% increase year over year in average new hires. In Q2 of this year, that was now a 6% increase year over year in new hires. So we're certainly seeing where the action and the intention of companies is to increase their new hires year over year, but I really want to balance that with the data that shows that in certain industries like manufacturing, our data shows that in the manufacturing industry, only 34% of jobs that have been lost in the last 3 years are going to be replaced in the next 3 years. In the professional services industry, that it becomes about 54% of the jobs that were lost in the last 3 years replaced over the next couple of years. So without a doubt, what we're seeing as a result of the economy is business executives now saying, listen, no longer do we accept that flat is the next growth. We cannot do that, and we're not necessarily just in survival mode. We've got to be in growth mode to appease our shareholders and to continue to be viable as a business, but we're going to do so with fewer employees. And that's where you're going to hear me talking about automation quite a bit, because what this is not representative of is what this next slide shows, which is, really squeezing blood out of a turnip. Frankly, this is how the employees in our businesses, frankly, us as employees in a business, have been feeling over the last few years. And really, we've gotten to a point where we can't squeeze any more out of our workers. So what it's now about is alignment. And you're going to hear me reference alignment a couple times throughout this presentation. And the whole alignment thing is really focused on, and look at it from the workforce and the HR perspective. It's about aligning the workforce and HR's objectives, or excuse me, not just objectives, but output and their work elements aligned with that of where the business is going. And, it sounds so basic. It sounds like, any job function out there should exist to support where the business wants to go. But there's always layers within the job functions and the corner office, and oftentimes people don't have that kind of visibility. Well, what we're seeing out there is a humongous push from the CEO suite down, where everyone within the business must have line of sight into where the organization is going, not just now, but years from now, and how does what they're doing align with the objectives, and furthermore, can you produce demonstrable results that show that correlation? And that's really where things are at. And frankly, this would be the last high-level data point that I share with you here, but this is the data that supports it. This is from our Q4 2011 study. As you could see, whether you're a small business that's less than $50 million in revenue, whether you're a mid-sized business that's less than $1 billion, between $50 million and $1 billion, or whether you're a large business over $1 billion in revenue, the top focal areas were either around revenue growth or growth and profitability and margin. And I really want to emphasize something here. As you can see on the far right, the cost reduction certainly is still a stronger need among the mid-sized and the large organizations, but don't mistake profitability and margin growth to cost reduction. In fact, when we talk with these executives, especially the C-level executives, they've squeezed a lot of cost, as many costs as they can pretty much out of the business right now. What it's so much more focused on are efficiencies and productivity, and again, that's where it comes down to alignment. So just thought I'd share that with you, and frankly, this is a good illustration here of where we see HR needing to balance what its focus is between the growth and the efficiencies. And this really comes at a very interesting time, because this next data slide I'm going to share with you is very eye-opening. In fact, over the last 3 years, every year in our human capital practice, at the same point in time, we ask 1 or 2 questions in one of our studies of the HR and the line of business executives that take part in our research. And by the way, if we don't have at least a couple hundred survey respondents in every study, we don't publish that data. So we really have to make sure that it's valid data. But what we've continued to see over the last 3 years is the perception of HR has been on a steady decline. Now, what I wanted to show you up here is, if you look, the blue line indicates, that's the top line, is what HR has been telling us. The pink line, the bottom line, where it says LOB, that's line of business. This is what line of business has been telling us. And what we ask them is, hey, on a scale of 1 to 5, please rate the strategic alignment of HR with your business. So 1 meaning that there is really no alignment at all, and 5 meaning highly aligned, strategies are integrated, et cetera, very strategic to our business. And as you can see, both HR and line of business have been actually rating the strategic perception of HR, or the strategic impact of HR, lower. Now, without a doubt, we believe that the economy explains most of this, because as I had mentioned earlier, as companies had lost its focus, or their focus on long term, the focus really has been on how do we squeeze as much as we can out of the business now so that we can survive. Well, as I just mentioned, that focus now is changing. And in fact, what I wanted to share with all of you is that, data I'll share with you in just a little bit that we just collected yesterday. So you guys are going to be the first ones outside of Aberdeen to hear the next, some of the data I'm going to be sharing with you in just a few moments here. But without a doubt, HR's got that message. And the good news is this: we see that HR is very in tune with what the business, with the intent of aligning with the business, but there still are barriers that's getting in the way of HR's ability to align with the business. And this is what HR and frankly the brokers, we think, should be focusing on. And so let me get into the next slide here that shows you what those top barriers to HR's strategic impact have been. And what you can see here is, without a doubt, is the focus on tactical elements. In fact, fully half, if not more than half, of the people that took part in the last study where we asked, hey, what's in the way of HR becoming more strategic to the business? It's their perception that they were mired in the tactical elements. You can also see here that there isn't a strong inability to prove the business case. And this is something we've been writing about, and frankly, this isn't new to HR. HR is very well aware of this, but in many instances, and I think this is not speaking out of turn because at every one of our human capital summits we've held for the last 3 years, this is an invitation-only event where we have about 130 to 150 director level and above HR executives, HR, talent management, organizational development, et cetera, that type of job functional element. We invite them to our summit as our guests, and we really get in that we share just great data with them. We have great conversations, but without a doubt, they're the ones telling us it's the 80-20 rule. About 80% of HR does not have the proclivity to actually align with the business. There's a lot of barriers in the way there, and I'm not going to get into what those are here, but a lot of it is a lack of business education. But this is an area where the top 20%, we're seeing that strategic alignment. Now, one thing I wanted to share is this, that we have our 2012 Core HR survey live right now. In fact, yesterday I asked one of our research associates to pull all the survey respondents, and we had about 140 thus far to that particular survey. It just went live a couple days ago. And I asked him to pull down the data for me so I could look at a couple of answers. And one of the answers that I was very interested in is that to the following question, which is, is HR, how much of HR's time do you perceive is spent on tactical or administrative elements versus more strategic? And what we found, or what I found in the data, is that 54% of those executives that have taken part in that survey already have indicated that they perceive that HR spends at least 50%, so 50% or more of their time on transactional administrative tasks. So this continues to be a barrier, and it's a strong area of need for people to come in and actually work with HR to help them, and in turn become that business partner to them. So with that in mind, what can be done from a data perspective? These are the areas that need to be focused on. First off, it's standardization. Now the question we asked is what are companies doing in order to overcome the tactical areas, or HR being so tactical? And as you can see here, there's a relative tie for the first answer. The first is standardizing processes. So what we're seeing out there is a tremendous need to add consistency. Now, the larger in scope an organization is, especially geographically dispersed or many different business units, the more important this is. So what we're seeing is the need for consistency and repeatability to help with reducing errors, reducing redundancies. You can also see a strong need for automation, the importance of creating efficiencies, freeing up resources to focus on more strategic elements. And wait till the slide at the end that shows the benefits of automating benefits management. We've got a slide at the end I'll share with you that really shows the business impact of automating benefits management versus more manual type benefits management. You can also look at the data here, though, folks, as almost like a maturity curve. What we're seeing out there is the more mature, let's say, not necessarily a business, but the more mature of an HR organization within that business, what we're seeing is that the first thing companies look to do is to standardize, to gain consistency. Then what they want to do is they want to automate. So now that they've standardized their processes, they've ensured the workflows are in place, they want to automate that to take advantage of the greatest efficiencies possible. And then now it comes down to data. Now they've automated, so now you've got an opportunity to use that data. And this is really, really the future of benefits management and core HR, frankly. It's how do we use that data, not to report on what just happened to the business, but from an analytics standpoint of how to use that to really shape where the company is going. And then, of course, there's always outsourcing. And frankly, what we saw is we're seeing an uptick in the interest in actually outsourcing some of the tactical elements, whether it's benefits, payroll, et cetera, but continued increase in that as well. So, one of the things we're always asking is what are the pressures driving the the need for core HR. And I don't want to spend a whole lot of time on this because this is going to repeat a lot of what I just said, but I'll share with you a data point that really opens up our eyes here a little bit. This is from 2009, so the light blue bar is data we collected in September 2009. The dark blue bar is data we collected in August 2010. And what we're seeing here is in those 2 years, the economy was really forcing companies to focus on core HR. And we saw where, secondly, it was the competitive pressures forcing HR to be more strategic. And then there was regulatory requirements, et cetera. Well, as I had mentioned, we're now seeing businesses focus on growth. And I also stated that we're seeing HR really starting to become much more aligned with that message. Well, in this year's study, and I didn't have time to put it because literally we just pulled it yesterday, what we're seeing is that the number one response, in fact, 44% of the respondents to this particular question, which is what are the top 2 pressures driving your organization to focus on improving core HR service delivery, was to support organizational growth goals. And so making consistency in delivery and processes a priority. So again, we're seeing the importance on consistency, and we're seeing the importance of doing that to support the growth goals. And frankly, the economy thus far is the third most popular answer. And the second most popular answer is the need to provide better employee experience throughout the life cycle. In other words, making HR easier to work with, and also making employees understand what's available to them as they go from recruitment all the way to first-year employee to someone who's maturing within the business. So just at a very high level, for those of you who are not familiar with Aberdeen's research, or if you're wondering, boy, where's Martin getting his data from? Is he making this stuff up? We do subscribe to a methodology. We're a 23-year-old firm here based in Boston, Massachusetts. We also have an office in London. Every one of our research practices launches a new online survey about every 2 months of their core domain audience, and we're always asking, what are the pressures driving your business? What are the actions you're taking to address the pressures? How are you executing against those actions or strategies? So what kind of workflow, organizational alignment, what type of metrics are you measuring, how frequently you measure those, et cetera? And then also, what types of technologies are you utilizing to automate those processes? So that's what Aberdeen is core at. So I feel very credible in speaking to you on this subject. And just quickly, we do view that there is a tremendous amount of value in the aggregate data, but what we're more so focused on doing is finding out what the best in class are really focused on. So like for instance with core HR data or benefits data, for core HR specifically, what we'll do is we'll disaggregate the data and we'll find the top 20% of businesses that took part in our survey that have the best error rate in standard payroll, had the best employee satisfaction, and the best errors, let's say, it says manual HR transactions, so the least number of manual HR transactions. We'll look at companies like that, and then we'll break out our answers, and we'll go to the world and say, hey, those strategies that the companies are pursuing when it comes to core HR? Well, the companies that did best in these 3 KPI or these 3 metrics, these are the strategies they're pursuing versus the middle 50 and the bottom 30, the industry average and laggard. So that's our research methodology. So if you have any questions for me, or if you hear me talk about best in class, what we are really focused on knowing is how do the actions companies take, how do the supportive processes and workflows and the technologies they adopt, how do they differ among the top 20%, the best in class, versus the middle 50 average and the bottom 30 laggard companies? So I just wanted you to understand we have a solid research methodology. It wasn't me just making things up here. Now, from a strategy standpoint, when it comes to core HR, knowing that HR must overcome the tactical and must align itself with the business. We're seeing that from a core HR standpoint. In fact, when we ask the question of what is your business doing to make sure it's maximizing its efforts in HR, you can see that whether you're best in class or average, everyone was focused on automation. And automation continues to be, with with the aggregate data we've collected as of yesterday, we see that as being a top answer as well, where automation is still the primary focal area. But the area where it's number 2 last year and it's number 2 this year, and I really, really want to talk about this, is empowering employees to be more self-sufficient. And by doing so, we're reducing the burden on HR, but we're also engaging the employees. And I delivered a presentation in London 2 months ago to 75 operations executives from very large companies, and it was all about how they should be looking at core elements of HR as not necessarily just cost and compliance initiatives, but as also revenue-generating initiatives. And they were very keen to hearing that message because typically it's just the cost and compliance side. So what we're seeing here is a very strong need around that. And frankly, I wanted to share with you a case study of an organization that we think really supports this. This is a domestic company. It's actually not a company. It's a foundation. It's called the Cal Poly Pomona Foundation. Their whole existence is to support the Cal Poly University system in California. And what they had was in 2006, they decided to examine their core HR functions. And what they found is they had challenges and opportunity around a couple of areas. First off, from a workload perspective, they were processing payroll biweekly manually, and it took them 4.5 full-time equivalents, 5 days every pay period to complete that. But there were errors and redundancies as a result as well. From a systems perspective, the organization had 4 separate systems. They had one for payroll, one for time and labor, another for absence management. They had a core HRIS, and that created redundancies in workflows and manual processes. It reduced efficiencies. It increased the risk of errors within their business, et cetera. So what they really pursued a year later was an integrated core HR solution. It kept payroll in-house, but it really what they focused on was employee and manager self-service. And through employee and manager self-service, what they've been able to find is that they've been able to decrease the number of full-time equivalents focused on payroll processing. Instead of 4.5, spending 5 days every 2 weeks, they have 1.5 person or 1.5 full-time equivalents doing the same job. They've also been able to eliminate personnel, and that was critical for them because of the cost drivers that were being handed down to them. But more importantly, as a result of this, they've been able to pay their employees accurately faster. And they believe that reducing the burden on the tactical element has had a huge impact on satisfaction of HR, payroll, as well as personnel. And this slide really speaks to it. It's the initiative has truly enabled us to evolve from being transactional to being fully strategic with the business. Now, I have another polling question, before I get to a polling question, I just wanted to show you this because, it's important to talk about the blocking and tackling. Having a process to gauge satisfaction of employees with HR services is a best-in-class enabler, as well as HR performance data provided to business leaders on a frequent basis, and formally reviewing effectiveness of core HR strategy at least annually. You can see where nearly 2/3 of best-in-class are doing that, where roughly about 1/3 of laggard organizations do that. But here's what I wanted to share. This is a challenge to everyone on this call, because when I looked at the data this year, 37% of the aggregate survey respondents indicated they have a process to gauge satisfaction of employees with HR services provided, and only 47% said that HR performance data is provided to business leaders on a frequent basis. So again, less than the majority of organizations are actually doing that. Now, the next question here that I want to send out to everyone is, from a global perspective, now a global organization simply means that your organization has employees geographically outside of your home country, okay, which I would venture to guess is most of the organizations on this call. But what has our research found to provide which infrastructure, let's say, provides the greatest burden on HR? Is the HR function centralized with regional or local HR personnel? Is the HR function centralized with regional or local HR, or without regional or local HR personnel, or is it decentralized where every region has its own department? And again, if someone here can just update the results, since I don't have that view on my screen here, and push that out when the results come in. Great, and you're exactly right. In fact, when we look at the decentralized aspect of it, we continue to see where what that does is it adds, frankly, to the inconsistencies that we had talked about, the redundancies, the inability to scale as a business grows because of lack of standardization within the business itself. So absolutely, we see centralization being a much more important part of strategic HR. From a benefits management focus, one thing I wanted to talk about here is, enabling the business to meet its growth objectives. While benefits management, frankly, is not all that considered all that sexy sometimes, it is very strategic. And where we see companies turning to benefits management really is around more of a recruiting tool. And so what we did, and this is data from a 2010 study we did on benefits management, and the question we asked is, what are the pressures driving your company to focus on benefits management? So what you could see here is the competition for skilled labor. And so even though the cost of providing benefits, and we never see that going away, especially in the United States right now with all the regulatory issues around health care, et cetera, but where it comes to if you're unable to provide the raises, and many companies right now either have those salary freezes in place or are curbing it for whatever reason, the utilization, the communication of benefits management is highly strategic. In fact, when we look at strategies pertaining to benefits management, we see where benefits management used to attract and retain talent is very high on the list. And also empowerment, i.e. self-service, is really critical. But while strategy is one thing, executing is another. And the next slide shows some best-in-class practices that all organizations should look to put in place that will assist with both initiatives. And as you can see here, the communication and visibility is really critical. So what we're seeing is that employees are trained on the use of benefits management systems or portals is essential for best in class. Clear and regular communication of benefits to employees, far more frequent and among the best in class. Total rewards, in other words, adding together benefits and compensation, et cetera, health and wellness type programs. Statements are provided to individual employees, or targeted communications of benefits and other offerings going out to the workforce. This is where one of the greatest trends we see in HR, frankly, is wrapping marketing communications under the responsibility of the chief HR officer at most companies. And for that very reason, to be able to ensure that internal communications or what's provided from an HR or available from an HR standpoint is actually there. So, from a differentiating capability standpoint, some things to take away. We talked about centralization, and we've talked about standardization. I'm sure that some of you are seeing clients move to a shared service environment. Self-service and clear communication, especially as your client companies are beginning to offer alternative healthcare plans, such as consumer-driven or high-deductible plans, are coming into vogue here. If you look at technology like what EBEX has, you can tie each of these back to them. And each of these really tie back to three core themes. It's streamlining the HR function, it's the ability to leverage the data coming in, and it's empowering employees. And again, the visibility aspect is really critical, and visibility, having that line of sight, not only between what's expected of you as a worker, but what's available to you, and are you taking advantage of those as an employee, is essential in benefits management and overall engagement moving forward. Now, I had mentioned earlier that automation was really critical. It shouldn't, that's not going to come as a surprise to anyone, but we do have data here that really validates the benefits of automation. when it comes to benefits management. And as you can see here, administrative satisfaction with the last enrollment period, much higher when the benefits system is automated versus not. I really like to look at things like change in healthcare costs to the employee. You could see that didn't go up as much with an automated solution, so allowing companies to really curb that cost. And one of the key areas that businesses are looking at, as we had mentioned, is the overall impact on the business. And so one thing I wanted to share with you as you absorb the data here on this particular slide is a case study around Hershey entertainment resorts. And some of you may have actually spent some time at one of their entertainment resorts. I think they've got about how many properties right now? Several different destinations across the United States. They've got about 2,100 employees, mostly full-time, some are part-time. All of those have benefits that are extended to them. But one of the challenges they faced was the need to properly onboard employees, giving them access to benefits information and other relevant content that their internet portal really poorly provided, let's say. They were using a legacy portal. It was outdated. It was very difficult to use. Employees, frankly, were not even utilizing it. Thus, they were underutilizing the benefits available to them. And they were spending far more time in that first week on the job working with HR and trying to get paperwork completed versus actually getting to the job in the first place. So, what we saw here from Hershey's was a concentrated effort to introduce a consumer-directed health plan. It was offered in 2007. The enrollment period went into effect in about 2008. The company did preserve their PPO plan, giving employees either option. One of the first steps that they took was to revamp their intranet to make it easier for people to work, et cetera. And they wanted to improve the communication process to employees to educate them and ultimately increase their participation in the CDHP. And they did use a software as a service solution here to actually do that. So basically what happened was the first year that the CDHP was made available, only 50 employees were enrolled. 2 years later, the number jumped to 200, thanks to better communication and education of what was available to them. But as a result of automation and, more importantly, self-service, enrollments, close to 1,500 to be exact, were self-completed, relieving HR personnel from a very substantial burden and allowing those workers to actually focus on the job at hand. And this comes straight from the person running the program at Hershey's Resorts, and it says, "We don't have the data yet, but I believe that employee satisfaction and engagement are higher. Our managers and department heads love employee self-service. Through continued communication efforts and educational tools, we hope employees will better understand the value of their benefits and make them more cost-effective choices as a result." So again, one more case study here where automation of benefits and clear communication of what's available to people on a regular basis is being tied to not just employee satisfaction, but overall engagement, as well as time to productivity and the reduced burden on HR. So the last poll question I want to ask of you is, besides price, and this is data from our benefits management study, besides price, what do you perceive as the top-rated vendor selection criteria for benefits management? Is it call center support for employees? Is it the interoperability with the organization's existing HRIS solution? Is it the vendor's ability to produce a track record of success? In other words, hey, we've done this on these many occasions with these types of clients. Is it the vendor's ability to offer services complemented with technology use? Is it ease of use of the solution? Or is it the delivery options that are available? So again, if someone on the administrative side can push the results and show that, I'd appreciate that. Great, and you nailed it again. You guys are reading our research, I trust. Actually, I know that you're very in tune with your business. It's exactly easy use. And so and most of that comes from, not only an easy-to-use application, but the ability to communicate how to utilize the system as well. So I'm going to finish here and turn things over to Mike Lawton in just a second. But, the critical takeaways here, without repeating myself, is really you need to show your clients how they can make HR and benefits management just much more strategic and impactful in the business. Retention, engagement, attraction, and empowering decision makers through better data. And this is really important, especially critical when you start dealing with things like HIPAA. So if there's any questions, I'm very happy to stay on afterwards and answer those. But right now what I want to do is I want to introduce Mike Lawton, the President and CEO of Benefit Coordinators Corporation, who will be introducing best-in-class strategies that many of their clients are implementing to maximize ROI in HR. Mike?
Well, thank you. Good morning, everybody, and good afternoon, depending upon which time zone you're in, I suppose. And thank you, Kevin, for such a great presentation and a compelling presentation, I might add. Kevin, I've chosen to repeat your slide that illustrates the best-in-class strategies because, in our opinion, it identifies clearly the guidelines of what an employer can do right now, and especially in light of these challenging economic and unpredictable times. Each employer, irrespective of size, usually has a unique way that they present and manage their employee benefits. But what's common to all of them is they're looking for ways to streamline cost and reduce the amount of administrative tasks that continue to burden their shrinking HR departments. And they all need to do it now. Let's take a little closer look at these best-in-class strategies that Kevin pointed out to us, and I've reordered them a little bit. First one is empower employees to be more self-sufficient to reduce the burden on HR. 2, automate or further automate existing HR processes and programs. And 3, make HR a true business partner aligned with the needs of the business. Get them a seat at the executive table, if you will. So those of you that are on the phone, whether you're a human resources executive or representative there, or representing your employer, or you're a broker who advises on behalf of an employer, I'd like to just take about 5 minutes to share with you a new way to rethink your approach to benefits management. Folks, this is TotalWorks. TotalWorks is a comprehensive suite of proven benefits lifecycle management solutions using an on-demand software-as-a-service platform brought to you by a strategic partnership between Ebix Health and Benefit Coordinators Corporation. Here's a quick background of the partners. Already mentioned in John's intro is Ebix Health. It's a business unit of Ebix, a public company and a leading international developer and supplier of software and e-commerce solutions for the insurance industry. BCC is a national provider of outsourced solutions connecting HR, benefit management, and specialty administrative services since 1988. And BCC and Ebix Health have a long history together and are the co-developers of BenXL, which is a suite of innovative benefit administrative tools. But frankly, it's their combined expertise, experience, solid technology resources, innovative wellness tools, and their award-winning history that is the power behind TotalWorks. And we think it's coming along at the right time. So who uses TotalWorks? Well, it's really, and hopefully you'll recognize some of these logos here, but the tools and services that make up TotalWorks are already in use today. They are trusted by thousands of employers ranging across a wide range of industries, including Fortune 500 plus companies, associations, public sector business, insurance companies, and many more. So what is TotalWorks? Well, the first best-in-class strategy outlined by Aberdeen was empower employees to be more self-sufficient to reduce the burden on HR. TalentWorks, so we tried to simplify the many features that are part of into 3 active areas: TalentWorks, AdminWorks, and DataWorks. The intent behind the use of the gears is to illustrate the interconnectivity between them, and when they are built in just the right way and according to the employer's unique needs, they achieve outcomes that address all of the best-in-class strategies and create an immediate investment, a return on investment. The first best-in-class strategy, as I mentioned, was empower employees to be self-sufficient to reduce the burden on HR. TalentWorks empowers employees with a communications platform that provides 24/7 online access to the information that they need at that very moment to make the smart benefits and health decisions that they need. It's customizable to the employer's taste while making it easy and friendly to navigate for the employee. It includes smart enrollment solutions that prevent employee mistakes for both open enrollment and ongoing life events. It can also assist that employer to migrate themselves from paper to paperless and at their pace. Many of you already know about Adam, the leading provider of online consumer health information with one of the largest continually enhanced multimedia health libraries. Basically, they're everywhere, and we're there first. Among their many and varied capabilities, such as real value statements, lots of calculators, cost and care tools, call center, nurse helplines, is their recent iPhone application, mHealth to Go, which taps into that library, provides a symptom navigator to assist in diagnosing a health issue, and then can direct a person to the appropriate caregiver via their GPS locator. A pretty cool and innovative tool. Next is AdminWorks. AdminWorks solutions centralize and automate the thousands of transactions in the benefits lifecycle of an employee, from onboarding to termination. This key component clearly addresses the next best-in-class strategy, which was to automate existing HR processes. Earlier I mentioned the smart enrollment capabilities of TalentWorks, and what makes that work so well is eligibility lifecycle management. It's capturing and building all the complex rules and formulas for all coverages into the system and then marrying that with a clean, updated eligibility database. This core functionality allows employees and the HR to work at their best. A natural byproduct of eligibility lifecycle management is true consolidated billing. Now, this is a loosely thrown around term in our space, but most never really describe what it should do. Under AdminWorks, the employer receives one monthly invoice for all of their coverages. The employer sends that premium to AdminWorks, where it is then remitted to the appropriate carrier and or vendor. Also, AdminWorks handles the entire reconciliation process. The HR department has only one eligibility database instead of interfacing with 5 or 6 each month. For those employers who still want to pay their carriers directly, AdminWorks provides the compare and pay option. The ability to make better business decisions, as well presented in Kevin's presentation, almost always requires timely access to reliable data and metrics. AdminWorks captures and provides an array of information accessible through dynamic reporting engine in a variety of formats, most of which are available 24/7. As you can see, AdminWorks provides additional services such as individual retiree billing, FSA and COBRA administration, and dependent audits, all in the fully integrated system platform, BenXL, powered by BenXL. DataWorks. To complete the benefits lifecycle, DataWorks solutions synchronize the secure, compliant exchange of benefits data with employers, insurance carriers, payroll providers, and HRIS systems. We currently process hundreds of feeds per week. Well, that's a pretty quick run-through of TotalWorks, the product. But before I turn it back over to John, I wanted to share one more slide with you and make one more main point. And most likely it's the most important of all. A Stanford University economist, David Herbert, stated, "Return on investment is a fact of business. No chief financial officer will make an investment without having a fully detailed ROI, interpreting the benefits in financial terms." Well, you're viewing 3 actual clients of ours who are happy to realize the benefits of outsourcing key elements of their internal HR functions to TotalWorks. As you can see, in the first year, the savings range from $190 to an excess of $300 per employee per year. The overall return on investment averaged over 300% per each company. And as you can look in case study number 3, a little over 2,000 employees, the savings in that first year approached almost $400,000. The criteria that we used to evaluate that was HR, payroll, accounting man-hours, insurance carrier premiums and eligibility reconciliation, employee enrollment, orientation, lost productivity, communication methods, and of course, processing paper. As Kevin pointed out, unfortunately, most businesses and senior leadership still view HR departments as a cost center with an inability to affect the business. We think if you'll let TotalWorks help you, you can alleviate some of the costly tactical HR activities and replace them with time spent on more strategic actions. With TotalWorks, you have the solutions to make HR an active business partner aligned with the needs of your business. As you can see, I know we went through this relatively quickly, so you would most likely like more information. You can call us at the phone number listed on the screen, or go onto our BenXL website, click on the TotalWorks logo, and we'll gather some more information from you and send you some information. At this point, I'd like to turn this back over to John Lamb, who is going to be moderating the question and answer period.
Thank you, Mike, and thanks, Kevin. A lot of great information. So we've got a lot of data points and then a lot of practical solutions on how to deliver on those data points for our HR partners out there. We do have quite a few questions. Unfortunately, we don't have a lot of time, but we would like to go ahead and answer any questions that you've got. So if you do have a question, by the way, you can still type it in the Ask a Question text area and click on the Submit button, so you can submit those to us. So what I'd like to do is to go ahead and engage Kevin and Mike in some Q&A. So the first question I have is, does this system, I think referring to TotalWorks, offer a Section 125 admin management software, ASP, to integrate benefit management technology functions into one system?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
Mike?
we do. It already is integrated into the full system already as a module. When we built the system originally, it included both COBRA and flexible spending as a key component of that underlying system.
Okay, great. Thank you. Next question is, and Kevin, you may have answered this question, but what does your data show as the top focus area of HR for 2012?
John, I just want to reiterate one key thing. Without a doubt, when we look at the data, and I want to focus this on process, not necessarily a technology answer, because from a process standpoint, about half of the survey respondents to our data are telling us that what they plan to put in place is the same thing that they told us last year they plan to put in place to support their HR strategy, and that's all around HR effectiveness measures being clearly defined, HR service delivery metrics agreed to by the business, and core HR functions integrated with other elements within the business, whether it's business data, recruiting data, et cetera. So those are areas there that are ripe for an organization to actually help HR with.
Great. Thanks, Kevin. Another TotalWorks question. There's a question about data feeds, Mike. Are there any limitations with regards to feeds to payroll vendors?
No, actually, in our DataWorks service team typically connects with an employer's IT, HRIS, and payroll teams to establish the data path and the connection process. And that DataWorks team will fit that path to that employer's system. So really, at the end of the day, DataWorks is agnostic to the system that it would be, whether it's Ceridian or ADP or a homegrown payroll system. As long as we can get access to that information, we can build a path between it. A typical process to build might include initial systems needs discussion, 2, a configuration and specs process, 3, the actual building of the data feed link, and then 4, test that link to make sure that it works appropriately, and then go live.
Okay, great. Thanks, Mike. So, Mike, how do you handle an employer who needs both online and paper enrollments?
That's a good question. Even though most folks have access to a computer these days, and the goal is to encourage employees to tap into the power of TotalWorks tools, some employers, by the very nature of their employee population, still need to use paper enrollments. Well, TotalWorks can do both. We can assist an employer as they move their culture to one of self-service by migrating them from paper to paperless at their pace. We have tools where the HR department can enroll an employee on an employee's behalf, or the employees can continue to fill out paper, and either our TotalWorks staff or HR can put that into the system.
Great. Thanks, Mike. And it looks like, we're out of time, and we do have some more questions. Did want to let everybody know that we are going to be following up today's presentation with an email with a link to view or download a copy of today's presentation. We'll also be responding with answers to the questions that have been posed as well. So anyway, thanks everyone for attending today's webinar. We hope you found it valuable. Please take a moment to give us some feedback by clicking on the link on the slide that's in front of you now and responding to the survey. Again, thank you for participating. Look forward to some follow-up from us, and enjoy the rest of your day.